Well, I'm about to clean this boat out because I'm planning on doing the wiring, and I need to get all this junk out of here if you can see it. But before I do that, I want to tell you about this battery. Now, I do have a video of this before I installed it in my camper, which is what I originally bought it for. And I'll put a link to that at the end of the video. But this is Big Battery from bigbattery.com. And I bought this. I don't get anything for telling you about this. Well, I wish they would though. But I want to tell you about this because it was a wise decision on my part to get this thing. The power plant of the boat is really important because with me, I have a fairly large lake. I have 2 electric motors, and I need it to get me someplace. I do trolling, sometimes a couple miles down the lake, to do some fishing while I'm there, and to get me back. And I need a lot of power to do that, and I need to be able to mosey along at least at a few miles per hour. This does that, or it will do that. I have a history with AGM batteries that is kind of okay, but I do realize now that even getting the initial ones when I started with them was probably an expensive mistake. This, for me, is the way to go. But while I clean this place up, take a look. It's something I put together to tell you about the reasoning for me doing that. And then we'll come back, we'll start the wiring. Like many, I started off in my camper with a 100 amp hour AGM battery. It worked pretty good. Of course, any wet cell battery like this AGM, when it drains to about 50%, in this case 50 amp hours, it stops working. About the only thing that'll work is LED lights because they'll almost work on air. If you actually want 100 amps of power, you have to have 2 batteries because you only get half the power out of them. So I added a second battery. Those 2 batteries were hardwired into the camper, and I had an electric boat by this time, so I decided to get 2 more of them so I could have 100 amps of power. Now, this was getting kind of expensive because these AGM batteries are $175 each. I had 4 of them, so that was $700. But they were providing the power I wanted, so it was worth it. After about 3 seasons of pretty hard use, I noticed they started to get markedly weaker. And on the graph, you can see a curve of how the current depreciates over time. That arrow was my 3-year mark, and I had lost probably 25% of the use of them. I started looking for alternatives, and I knew lithium was probably the way to go. I thought about building my own battery unit or getting separate cells, but then I found Big Battery. I picked up this unit for $875. It's 202 amp hours, but because it's lithium, 175 of those are capable for use, unlike the wet cells. And this unit comes with a 10-year warranty. Lithium is capable of going that long, that many cycles. This graph shows instead of a gradual decline, you get very little decline for up to 9 years, and then it drops off rapidly after that. So what I was looking at is 175 usable amps in my boat for $875 that I could also put in my camper because this unit is portable compared to fewer amps with 4 AGMs at $700. But also notice that 9 to 10 years with lithium as opposed to 3 years with the wet cells, I would have replaced those $700 batteries 2 or 3 times in the same amount of time as I kept one single lithium battery pack. And then there's the weight factor. My 200 amp lithium unit weighs 48 pounds. 2 AGM batteries are 90 pounds. I had 4 of them at 180 pounds. Now only 2 would be in the boat or the camper at a time, but still, that's double the weight. That lower weight lets me move it back and forth between the camper and the boat, so I only need to buy one. And it lets me bring it in the house in the winter. At the end of the warranty period, if I want to, and if the battery itself is still working good, I can pick up whatever quality lithium phosphate batteries I want, and I can take the old ones out and put new ones in. Now, this unit is beautifully made. It even has a halogen fire suppression system built into it, which I'm hoping is never needed. The case is stainless steel. The workmanship inside is impeccable. So let's take a look and see what's going on for electrical here. I've put together some stuff, and this is basically how it's going to roll. This is the back end of the boat, and you can see that's where the seat is, and that's as far back as it goes on the rail. So this back half over here is for the battery and some of this stuff. What I've got is I've got a switch box right here that will manage the running lights. I've got a spotlight here, and there'll be one just like it over here on the other side. So that's pretty much the electric up front as far as lights are concerned. Right down here in the boat, front of the boat, the Bass Raider comes with this plug, and I picked up a socket that'll go into it, and the electric motor mounted up here will be hooked up to that. Let's go back to the rear again. I have this aluminum box that I have primed and spray painted silver because I had spray paint, and it opens up. On the inside is an 80 amp circuit breaker. The battery will be connected directly to that, and then from there the hut side will go to this binding post that is the positive terminal, and all the positive stuff from the lights, the motors and so forth will be connected to that. So this is kind of like a bus bar for the positive terminal. I need to make a kind of a bus bar, but for the positive side, that'll be insulated against the aluminum box, so it can't short out, because the aluminum box is going to be the negative. As far as negative is concerned, I have that bolted right to the box. So the box itself will be a negative terminal, so all the negatives will go here. And some of the lighter weight sort of things, like the lights, will have their own separate little fuses, inline fuses. And all of these wires come out through these grommets on the side of the box. There is no master switch because the battery has a push button switch on it, so that'll be the master. But I do have a high current switch here, and this will be to turn the front motor on, because sometimes I'll be sitting up front to use the front motor for trolling, but sometimes I'll be having both motors running together just to move along in the water. That switch allows me to turn that motor on, and I will have it turned up full throttle. So when I flip the switch, that'll go on the front, and then I can run the motor from the back by hand. Now, I've had my electric boats that I've had in the past have all had at least 2 motors. One of them had 4. It was a large boat and it was electric. It took a lot of batteries. But I have a history with these. So one thing I do know about electric motors is that they really don't provide you with more speed, but they do provide you with more power. Now, both these motors are 36-pound thrust motors because that's what I had. So I've got them. I'm not buying new motors. But I do know that if I have a 36 on the front and 36 on the back, they only go a certain speed. I mean, they turn at a certain speed. The props are pitched a certain way. Whatever the weight of the boat is and the amount of wind and stuff, that's the maximum speed you're going to get. In ideal conditions, they'll only go so fast. Even if you add one to the front, it doesn't increase the speed that much. It does a little bit because the main thrust of what I think they do when you put multiple motors on is it gives you more power. So if you hit a headwind and you're having a hard time moving forward with one motor, if you put 2, it gives you more power, not necessarily more speed. You will speed up because you're overcoming the wind more. But electric motors, aren't for water skiing. They're for moving a boat around. And the more motors you have, the more you can overcome whatever resistances you have, whether it be waves or wind or just a boat that has a certain hydrodynamic profile. Snaked up through the center of the boat, and it's going to be right in that center trough right there, is this flexible wire enclosure. And I am going to periodically hot glue it in spots to the bottom just to kind of keep it where it is. And of course the mat goes over the top. And it's a certain diameter so that it will fit in there and not protrude and make a bump in the mat. I don't need much to go up there. I just need those lights. So on here, I have a hot wire for the running lights. I have a hot wire for the spotlights, and I have a ground wire. Because the electric motor has a built-in cabling system from here up to that plug that I showed you up there before. The only other electrical thing that I need to make, and I'll have a wire coming out here, is eventually I'll need a white running light for at night on the back, but there's no rush to put that in. I'll try to find something and I can put it in any time, but I'll have a connector for it. I also have, going into this large grommet down there, an Anderson connector, which will connect directly to the side of the battery, which will be right about there. And I have a Victron connector right here so that I can connect my Victron battery charger that I also use in my camper. It's removable, so that I can charge the battery. It'll be connected directly to the battery here, so when I plug it in, it'll start the battery charging. And I will also have a few various other connectors for the fish finder, for example, to charge that battery up. I just need to have these connectors hanging out as pigtails so that I can connect to them when I need to. Now everything, or in a lot of places, is being connected with these male and female wire connectors. I really like these. It allows me to disconnect things. For example, this light already has 2 of them that I put on to connect, so that I can unbolt this, I can replace the light, I can remove it, I can move it around, whatever I want to do. So all of these items that I have on here are able to be disconnected at the source so that I can work on them or move them around. This light right now also has a couple of connectors on it. And as you can see, this cable coming up the middle will be connected to this one, which goes from one side here and over to the other side. So I've got my little trolling battery used up as a temporary power source to check things out as I connect them. There's my snake of wire, which will go in the bottom of the boat. And up front, we have, let's see if we're gonna wash out here. We have two spotlights, or headlights, I guess, and the red and green running light, which pales in comparison, but I wouldn't be running with these anyway if I was running. That's just to come into the dock late at night, which I've had to do occasionally. So we've got blocks mounted here, wiring with wire connectors, wiring snaked over from one side to the other with a connection right in the center, right there, a T, and another mounting block over there. And we have lights. It's beginning to look like something. So I can't do every single wire here for you, but what I'm doing is I have these clips. I'm putting a piece of heat sink on the wire, crimping it, so we have a nice connection here. Then, let's see, I want the second one. These are the connectors from the switch box. Slide this over. We have a nice tight connection. And if I ever want to pull this apart, I just split it with a knife, take the heat sink off, and the connectors will come apart. But this will hold them together so they won't come apart in the meantime. So that's how these are going to be done. Well, when I do stuff, things certainly spread out. Here's the console. Right over here, I managed to put my Striker Garmin fish finder mount here. I've got two regular knobs here because I might want to slide it back and forth depending on where the seat is, or, you know, it turns anyway, but I might want to slide it up over here if I'm fishing up front. I've connected the big battery, and let's turn it on here. And we have, of course, lights and running lights, and the motor up front is running. Let me turn it off here. And I have turned it around so that, you know, when I'm trolling, it'll be pointing in the right direction. One thing, these motors are 46-pound thrust. I don't know why I thought they were 36. I think it's because I had a couple of other motors years ago when they were 36. So this is a pleasant surprise. When I get going, I spread out everywheres, and I mean everywheres. Just thought I'd show you the connections I have here. This is the Victron plug that when I go to charge the battery, I'll plug it into this. This will be for the motor back here. I plan on leaving it hooked up all the time, but I would like a quick disconnect should I need to remove it for some reason. Well, that kind of brings to close a good part of the wiring. You know, it's really done except for that other motor. I have to put the back end of the plug on it. And the bilge pump, I'm not going to wire in until I get this thing outside. I don't want it flopping around while I tip it up to take it out of that door right there. And as usual, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you have a mind to. Hit the like button, please. It really helps in the long run. And just odds and ends left. And then I'll be moving it outside to put the awning on because I need height to do that. Can't do that in here. Thanks for watching.